There, this is Professor Randal Schnoor of the Koshitsky Center for Jewish Studies. And of course, we're not able to hold any in-person events this year. And so we thought that we would send some messages out to our friends and colleagues in the community with short talks about various subjects. So I'm happy to contribute to that. I'm a sociologist, and I've been teaching here at the Koshitsky Center for Jewish Studies at York for about 16 years now. And I've been teaching for many years a course called Contemporary Jewish Life in North America. And what I thought I would do is to give you small pieces of some of the topic areas that I've been discussing with my students. So, for example, just this morning, I was discussing the issue of demographics, population studies. How do we count Jews in Canada? So, for example, I'm going to put up some documents on the screen. For example, we're familiar with documents such as this, where we know how many Jews are in the various cities in Canada. We know that there are 188,715 Jews in Toronto and 90,780 Jews in Montreal. And the question is, how do we know these figures? Now, these figures are from the 2011 census. In 2011, it was called the National Household Survey. It is essentially the census. And you may say, well, these are old figures, 2011. Why are we using such old figures? Well, the answer is we don't have any more up-to-date numbers until the 2021 census, which will happen next summer. And in fact, it takes about 2 years to crunch all the numbers till we even will know how many Jews there are in 2021. So this is the census, and this is how we count Jews. But what I want to talk to you today is, but how do we use the census more specifically to count Jews? Let's actually take a look at the census questions. This is a special sneak peek to something that you may not normally look at. Maybe you filled out the census, I hope that you did, in 2011, or the National Household Survey, as it was called then, but you may not remember. Now let's take a look at, for example, this is the actual page of the census. Let's take a look at question 22 on the census. Now this is the long form of the census. Just need to make an important point here. The long form of the census is the version of the census which comes only every 10 years. And it has the religion question, the all-important question 22. That means in 2001 it came, 2011, and it'll come again in 2021. Now, some of you know that there are also census that take place in 2006, 2016, 2026. This is true, but those census don't include the long form, and they will not ask the religion question. They will ask an ethnic ancestry question, which is quite interesting and important, which I'm going to get to in a minute, but they don't ask the religion question. As a result, to really have a proper count of Jews in Canada, we need to wait till 2021 until the long form census comes again, where we ask religion. Let's take a look at the question for a minute. I'm going to read it. What is the person's religion? Indicate a specific denomination or religion, even if this person is not currently a practicing member of that group. Very interesting. Even if this person is not currently a practicing member. So they're not saying, well, I don't observe much of Jewish law, so I really shouldn't count myself as Jewish. They want to avoid that. And the next point I want to make is they give some very interesting examples of what you might answer. Does that mean you have to answer something in the examples? No, but they do give examples, and this is important. What is this person's religion? For example, Roman Catholic, Ukrainian Catholic, United Church, Anglican, Lutheran, Baptist, Greek Orthodox rather, Jewish, Islam, Buddhist, etc. It gives Jewish as a option, as an example, in case you didn't think of it. It also asks you to specify only one denomination or one religion, which is interesting. And it also offers the option of no religion, which is, by the way, one of the most popular choices, where about 1/3 of Canadians are now choosing no religion. Okay, so this is the question 22, the all-important question 22 about religion. So you might think it's very straightforward. We can just find out from question 22 how many Jews there are in Canada. But indeed, it is a little bit more complicated, and let me show you why. I'm going to now share the important question 17. This is question 17 on the census. And look at what it says here. While most people in Canada view themselves as Canadians, information on their ancestral origins has been collected since the 1901 census to capture the changing composition of Canada's diverse population. Therefore, this question refers to the origins of this person's ancestors. Very interesting question. It's about ethnic ancestry. In Canada, we don't use the terminology of race, such as in the United States. We prefer the term ethnic ancestry or ethnicity. And so the question precisely is, to which ethnic or cultural groups does this person's ancestors belong? And let me look at the examples. For example, Canadian, French, Chinese, Italian, German, Scottish, Irish, Cree, Mi'kmaq, Métis, Inuit, East Indian, Ukrainian, Dutch, Polish, Portuguese, Filipino, Jewish. Very interesting. Jewish is there as a suggestion, as something that you could write. So let me get this straight. On question 22, we can write Jewish for religion. And on question 17, we can write Jewish as our ethnic ancestry. This gets a little bit more complicated. You can write Jewish twice, or you can write it once over here or once over there. First of all, I want to say the Census and Statistics Canada has it right, because I believe that Jews are both a religious group and an ethnic ancestry. And for some, they identify with one more than the other. And I think they're very smart to have Jewish listed in both question 22 and question 17. And in fact, Jewish is virtually the only group which is listed in both, which tells us something about how unique Jews are to start with. So the question then becomes, when the Jewish community hires its demographers to purchase this data from Statistics Canada, this is what happens. We purchase all the question 22s where people said Jewish, and all the question 17 data where someone said Jewish. And I will just add, in terms of question 17, one is allowed many answers. One could say, I am German, Polish, and Ukrainian. I have all that ancestry between my different ancestors, which is totally possible. One could also say Jewish, Hungarian. One could say Jewish and Canadian. If someone writes Jewish, this data will be purchased by community demographers who we hire through our Jewish federations. And we don't know the names of the people, but we collect the raw data. And how do we then balance those who might say they're Jewish by religion, but those who say they're not Jewish by ethnic ancestry? That might not be as complicated. If you say Jewish by religion, you're counted as a Jew. You are indeed one of the 188,715 Jews in Toronto. You were counted. But what if you say you're Jewish by ethnic ancestry, but not by religion? Should you be counted as a Jew? I mean, this is a demographic question, but also, in a sense, a philosophical or ideological question. who gets counted, who doesn't. To give it away, the standard definition, which is now called the Jewish standard definition, is if you're Jewish by religion or if you're Jewish by ethnic ancestry, as long as you wrote no religion with your Jewish ethnic ancestry. If you write you're Catholic with Jewish ethnic ancestry, you will not be counted. If you write you have no religion and you have Jewish ethnic ancestry, you will be counted. So this, I hope, will show you that counting Jews, I find quite fascinating and quite interesting to learn how it's done. Now, let me just tell you a couple more things before we close, and that is, as great as the census is, the government does it for us. We don't need to spend money other than purchasing some data, which is not terribly expensive. It's generally mandatory, so all Canadians are doing it. So this is a fantastic tool for us to count Jews. By the way, in the United States, they're not allowed to ask religion on their US census, so they can't use the census to count Jews. So in a way, we have it good here in Canada that we have the Canada Census. However, let me tell you some of the problems that have been developing. And this is really back to question 17. Notice that Jewish is far down the list. It's the 19th possible answer on the list. This isn't arbitrary. This isn't alphabetical. Why is Jewish the 19th possible suggestion? Because Jewish, on the census previous to this, was the 19th most popular selection. So they're simply putting the top 25 from the last census and throwing them on the page as suggested answers. Does that mean you can't pick something that's not suggested? Not at all. But guess what happened in 2016? In 2016, again, it was only the short form census. There was no question on religion. It's not an accurate count of Jews. But it did have question 7. There was no religion question 22, pardon me, on the 2016 census, but it did have question 17. And question 17 on the 2016 census no longer had Jewish listed as a possible option. It had fallen off the top 25 on the list. Does that mean you couldn't have written Jewish in 2016 as your ethnic ancestry? Not at all. But in fact, the Jewish population, at least by ethnic ancestry of Jews in 2016, dropped dramatically. Half the Jews of Canada were now gone. This caused a certain amount of concern and confusion. And the answer is, first of all, let's wait till 2021 when we can have more accurate counts. But we do seem to be losing Jews on the question 17 simply because Jewish isn't listed as a possible answer. Come on, Jews, you can still say Jewish, but it appears that it is influencing some people. So this is a concern because in 2021, Jewish, unless things are changed, will still not be listed in question 17 as a option. So I hope you're following all this. As a result of this concern that we demographers are having about the census, a new initiative has been successfully undertaken by my colleague, Professor Robert Brim at the University of Toronto, who is a sociologist like me, who has undertaken a study. I'm just going to pull it up just a second here. Got to pull it up from my computer. There it is. Excellent. And Robert Brim, along with his wife, Professor Rhonda Lenton, who we know, of course, is the president of our university, who's also a sociologist, who's done lots of sociological research, some of it on Jews, and a colleague, Keith Newman from Environics, have successfully completed a new study of Jews, which avoids the problem that I described for the census, where we may be losing Jews going forward, and of course, allows us to ask many more questions than the census would even think of asking. The Canada Census will not ask, do you light Hanukkah candles on Hanukkah? What is your level of dietary observance? How often do you go to synagogue? How important is Israel to your Jewish identity? Do your children go to Jewish sleepover camp? Of course, the Canada Census is not designed for Jews, although it gives us a lot of information about Jews, basic information. To his credit, Robert Brim and his colleagues have finally, for the first time in Canada, done a national survey of the Jews of Canada, where we have a wealth of information. And I will add, as a last point, Professor Brim and I will be taking a lot of this data that came from this study that couldn't even be published in this report on the screen here, and we'll be editing a new volume where we will be soliciting articles from many colleagues and scholars from around the world to consider this interesting data on Canadian Jews and to compare it to, for example, South African Jews, Australian Jews, British Jews, and many other comparisons. So it's really been a rich source of data, and moving forward, we're going to be producing a lot more comparative information from it. And all this to say that counting Jews is fascinating for me, methodologically complex, not as easy as it may seem. The Canada Census is a very useful tool for us, but it has limitations, and having community-based studies to complement the Canada Census are an excellent opportunity for us to further enrich our knowledge of the demography of the Jews of Canada. So I will end it there. Professor Randal Schnoor, Koshitsky Center for Jewish Studies. Pleasure to chat with you today.